What happens when a royal guest walks onto a beloved morning show and turns a friendly interview into an all-out war? It only took 31 seconds for Meghan Markle to destroy her own reputation on live television. This is the story of how one of the most shocking altercations in talk show history unfolded, word by word, insult by insult, until security had to step in. The morning started like any other on the Lorraine Kelly show. The set was bright, pastel blues and soft whites. The kind of color palette that promises gentle conversation and warm cups of tea. The audience had filed in, buzzing with quiet excitement. Cameras were positioned. Lighting was adjusted. Everyone was in their places, ready for another day of feel-good television. And Lorraine herself was preparing for what she thought would be a standard celebrity interview. Meghan Markle had been booked weeks in advance. Publicists had exchanged pleasant emails. Producers had mapped out the segment with care. Everyone was expecting a light, pleasant conversation about her latest projects, her philanthropic passions, her life updates. Nothing controversial, nothing heavy, just the kind of friendly chat that had made Lorraine a household name for over 3 decades. But sometimes, the quietest mornings hide the loudest storms. Lorraine sat in her chair, flipping through her notes one last time. She had prepared thoughtful questions, the kind that would make any guest feel comfortable and valued. Open-ended, warm, inviting. The studio lights were hot, the cameras were rolling, and the countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Lorraine smiled warmly at the camera, her Scottish lilt soft and welcoming. Good morning, everyone. We have a very special guest with us today. Please welcome Meghan Markle. The audience applauded. Hands came together in eager anticipation. And then Meghan walked onto the stage. She was dressed impeccably. A designer outfit that probably cost more than most people earn in a month. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was flawless. But something was off. Something was wrong. Her smile seemed forced. Her eyes were cold. She moved with the stiff precision of someone who did not want to be there. She sat down across from Lorraine without making much eye contact. Her posture was rigid. Her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The warm energy that usually filled the studio began to cool. Lorraine, ever the professional, kept her warm demeanor. She leaned forward slightly. Meghan, thank you so much for being here. It is lovely to have you on the show. Meghan barely nodded. She said, her tone flat. Dismissive. Lorraine pressed on, trying to warm up the conversation. So, you have been incredibly busy lately. Can you tell us what you have been working on? Meghan shifted in her seat, looking almost annoyed by the question. She let out a small sigh. Well, Lorraine, I have been working on projects that actually matter. Things that make a difference in the world. You know, not just fluff pieces for morning television. The audience went quiet. A few people exchanged glances. The kind of glances that said, did she just say that? Lorraine blinked, clearly taken aback, but she kept her composure. She had been in this business long enough to know that sometimes guests were nervous, sometimes they were guarded. She gave Meghan the benefit of the doubt. Well, that is wonderful, Lorraine said, her voice still warm. Our viewers are always interested in meaningful work. What specifically have you been focusing on? Meghan let out a small laugh, but it was not a friendly one. It was sharp, cutting. I do not think your viewers would understand, to be honest. These are complex issues that require a certain level of, let us say, sophistication. The word hung in the air like a slap. Lorraine's smile tightened, just a fraction. You could see the professionalism holding her back from reacting, but she was not going to let that slide completely. I think you might be surprised, Meghan, she said, her tone still polite, but now carrying a subtle edge. Our viewers are incredibly intelligent and engaged. They care deeply about important issues. Meghan waved her hand dismissively. Sure. I am sure they care about what celebrity wore what dress, or whatever gossip is trending. But real change? That takes more than just watching daytime TV. The tension in the studio was palpable now. Crew members behind the cameras were wide-eyed. Hands froze over control panels. The audience was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop from the back row. Lorraine took a deep breath. You could see her processing, recalibrating. She was clearly trying to steer the interview back on track, to salvage something from the wreckage. Well, let us talk about something else then, Lorraine said, her voice carefully measured. You have been quite vocal about various social issues. What drives your passion for activism? Meghan leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. She looked at Lorraine as if she were a child asking a foolish question. What drives it? Meghan repeated, letting the words hang. Maybe the fact that I actually have a platform and I am not afraid to use it. Unlike some people who just sit behind a desk and ask softball questions all day. The insult landed with surgical precision. Lorraine's jaw tightened. The mask of professionalism was starting to crack, but she was still holding on. Her voice remained steady, but there was a new firmness in it. Meghan, I am not sure what you mean by that. I have built a career on having honest, respectful conversations with my guests. Meghan scoffed. It was a sound full of contempt. Honest. Please. You ask the questions the producers tell you to ask, and you smile and nod and pretend like everything is lovely. That is not journalism, Lorraine. That is entertainment. The audience gasped. A few people murmured in shock. The kind of collective intake of breath that happens when a line has been crossed. Lorraine sat up straighter. Her eyes flashed with something close to anger now, controlled, but unmistakable. I have been doing this for over 30 years, Meghan. I have interviewed world leaders, activists, artists, and yes, celebrities. And I treat every single person who sits in that chair with respect. Something I would appreciate in return. Meghan rolled her eyes. Respect? You want to talk about respect? How about the fact that I was kept waiting for 20 minutes before the show? How about the fact that my dressing room was barely acceptable? How about the fact that nobody here seems to understand who I am? Lorraine blinked in disbelief. You were not kept waiting, Meghan. You arrived late. And your dressing room is the same one we provide for all of our guests. It is perfectly comfortable. Meghan stood up abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor with a harsh sound. Comfortable for who? She shot back, her voice rising. For your usual guests, maybe? But I am not your usual guest, Lorraine. I am royalty. Or have you forgotten that? The entire studio fell silent. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, suffocating. The kind that presses down on you. Lorraine stood up as well. She did not back away. She did not shrink. She met Meghan's gaze with calm, unwavering resolve. Meghan, everyone who comes on this show is treated with kindness and respect, regardless of their title or background. We do not play favorites here. We believe everyone deserves the same level of care and attention. Meghan laughed bitterly. Oh, how noble of you. Everyone is equal in Lorraine land. How quaint. Let me tell you something, Lorraine. In the real world, some people matter more than others. Some people have influence, power, and reach. And some people, she paused, letting the words sink in. Well, some people just have a morning show that nobody really watches anymore. The audience erupted. Some people were booing. Others were calling out in defense of Lorraine. The energy in the room had completely shifted, from warm anticipation to cold shock to outright outrage. Lorraine stood there, visibly stunned but refusing to back down. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm but carried an unmistakable finality. Meghan, that is completely uncalled for. I invited you here as a guest, and you have done nothing but insult me, insult this show, and insult our viewers. I do not know what is going on with you today, but this behavior is unacceptable. Meghan pointed a finger at Lorraine, her voice dripping with contempt. Unacceptable? You want to know what is unacceptable? Me being dragged onto a second-rate talk show and being expected to smile and play nice when I have a million better things I could be doing. I came here as a favor, Lorraine. A favor. And this is how you treat me. Lorraine's face flushed with anger now, but her voice remained steady. A favor? Meghan, nobody forced you to be here. You agreed to this interview, and I have been nothing but respectful and welcoming since the moment you walked in. If anyone has been disrespectful, it is you. Meghan took a step closer. Her voice grew louder, more aggressive. Disrespectful? Me? Do you have any idea who you are talking to? I could ruin you with one social media post. I could destroy this entire show if I wanted to. You should be thanking me for even showing up. The audience was in an uproar now. Some people were shouting at Meghan. Others were looking at each other in disbelief. The production crew scrambled behind the cameras, unsure of what to do. Lorraine shook her head slowly. The disappointment in her expression was almost more powerful than anger. Meghan, you need to leave right now. This is not going to continue. I will not allow you to speak to me or my team this way. Meghan laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. You are kicking me off? Me? Do you understand what a mistake you are making? Do you have any idea the kind of backlash you are going to face? Lorraine crossed her arms. Her voice was firm, unwavering. I am not afraid of backlash, Meghan. I am standing up for myself, for my team, and for the integrity of this show. You are no longer welcome here. Security will escort you out. Meghan's face turned red with rage. You are going to regret this, Lorraine. Mark my words. You are going to wake up tomorrow and realize what a huge mistake you just made. Two security guards appeared from the side of the stage. They approached Meghan calmly, but firmly. Their presence was professional, non-confrontational, but unmistakable. Meghan looked around at the audience, at the cameras, at Lorraine. Her expression was a mix of fury and disbelief. She seemed genuinely shocked that anyone would dare to stand up to her. Fine. Fine. I do not need this. I do not need any of you. You people have no idea what you are missing out on. She turned to Lorraine one last time. Enjoy your little morning show, Lorraine. Enjoy interviewing nobodies for the rest of your sad little career. The security guards gently but firmly guided Meghan toward the exit. She pulled her arm away from them, glaring back at Lorraine one last time. This is not over, she hissed. Lorraine stood her ground. She watched as Meghan was escorted off the stage. Her designer heels clicking against the floor, her voice still echoing with indignation. And then something remarkable happened. The audience began to applaud. Slowly at first, a few hands coming together, then more, then louder, until the entire studio was filled with the sound of clapping and cheering. They were not applauding Meghan. They were applauding Lorraine. Lorraine turned back to the camera. Her face was still flushed, but her expression was composed. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Well, she said, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. That was unexpected. A nervous laugh rippled through the audience. I apologize to everyone watching at home, Lorraine continued. That was not the interview any of us were expecting. But I think it is important to stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult, even when it is uncomfortable. The audience applauded again, even louder this time. Lorraine nodded graciously. We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we have some wonderful guests who I know will bring a much more positive energy to the show. Stay with us. The cameras cut to commercial. Backstage, the atmosphere was electric. Meghan was still arguing with the security guards, demanding to speak to someone in charge, insisting that she had been treated unfairly. Her voice echoed down the corridors as she protested her treatment. But no one was listening anymore. On the set, Lorraine sat down heavily in her chair. She exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in what felt like hours. One of the producers rushed over. Are you okay? She asked, her voice full of concern. Lorraine nodded. I am fine. That was intense. She paused. But I am fine. The producer squeezed her shoulder. You handled that perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. Lorraine smiled, a real smile this time. Thank you. I could not let her speak to us like that. To speak to our viewers like that. This show is built on respect and kindness. And I was not going to compromise that for anyone. The makeup artist came over to touch up Lorraine's face before they went back on air. Lorraine looked at herself in the mirror, taking a moment to collect herself. She thought about what had just happened, the insults, the entitlement, the sheer audacity of it all. But she also thought about how she had responded. With dignity, with strength, with grace. She had not raised her voice. She had not stooped to personal attacks. She had simply held her ground, defended her values, and refused to be bullied. And that, she realized, was something to be proud of. Meanwhile, out in the parking lot, Meghan was climbing into her car, still fuming. She pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen as she typed out angry messages to her team. How dare Lorraine treat her that way? How dare she kick her off the show? Did she not realize who she was dealing with? But inside the studio, the mood was completely different. The audience was buzzing with excitement. They had just witnessed something extraordinary. They had just seen Lorraine Kelly, the beloved morning show host, the woman who had been welcomed into their homes for decades, stand up to someone who thought they were above everyone else. They had seen her defend herself, her show, and her values without backing down. And they had loved every second of it. The commercial break ended. The cameras came back on. Lorraine was smiling again, back to her usual warm and welcoming self. Welcome back, everyone. Now, let us move on to something much more pleasant, shall we? The show continued without a hitch. The next guest was charming and gracious. The interviews that followed were delightful. It was as if the storm had passed, leaving behind only sunshine and calm. But everyone in that studio knew they had witnessed something unforgettable. They had seen entitlement meet its match. They had seen arrogance meet grace. And they had seen Lorraine Kelly, a woman who had spent decades building a career on kindness and respect, refused to be disrespected in her own house. Let us rewind and look at how it all spiraled so quickly. From the very beginning, there were signs that this was not going to be a typical interview. The moment Meghan sat down, her body language was defensive. Her answers were curt. Her tone was dismissive. But Lorraine, being the professional she is, tried to salvage the conversation. She asked open-ended questions. She gave Meghan opportunities to share positive stories. She tried to find common ground. But Meghan was not interested in common ground. She was not interested in having a pleasant conversation. For reasons only she knows, she walked onto that stage with an agenda. And that agenda seemed to be to belittle, insult, and demean everyone around her. When she insulted the viewers, calling them unsophisticated, that was the first major red flag. These were people who had tuned in specifically to see her. People who had taken time out of their morning to hear what she had to say. And she repaid their interest with contempt. But Lorraine, still trying to keep things civil, gently pushed back. She defended her audience, reminding Meghan that they were intelligent and engaged. It was a subtle but important moment. Lorraine was not going to let anyone talk down to the people who supported her show. Then came the insults directed at Lorraine herself. Meghan questioned her integrity as a journalist, dismissed her decades of work as nothing more than entertainment, implied that Lorraine was just reading from a script, that she had no real substance or depth. For anyone who knows Lorraine Kelly, who has watched her interview world leaders and everyday heroes alike with the same level of care and attention, those comments were not just insulting. They were wildly inaccurate. But even then, Lorraine remained calm. She stood her ground. She defended her career. But she did not escalate. She did not stoop to name-calling or personal attacks. She simply stated facts. She had been doing this for over 30 years. She had earned her place. And she deserved respect. It was when Meghan brought up her title, her status as royalty, that things truly reached a breaking point. The entitlement was palpable. The arrogance was shocking. She genuinely believed that she was above everyone else in that room, that her title gave her the right to treat people however she wanted. And that was when Lorraine drew the line. Because here is the thing about Lorraine Kelly. She does not care about titles. She does not care about fame or status or who you used to be. She cares about how you treat people. She cares about kindness, respect, and basic human decency. And when Meghan demonstrated that she had none of those things, Lorraine did what she had to do. She asked her to leave. The moment Meghan was escorted off the stage, you could feel the shift in the room. The audience, who had been sitting in stunned silence, erupted into applause. They were not celebrating the drama. They were celebrating the fact that someone had finally stood up to the kind of entitled behavior that so many people are sick of seeing. Think about what Meghan said in those final moments. She threatened Lorraine, telling her she would regret this decision. She insulted the show, calling it sad and irrelevant. She insulted the guests who would come after her, calling them nobodies. And in doing all of that, she revealed exactly who she really was, not a victim. Not someone fighting for justice or equality, but someone who believes that rules do not apply to her. Someone who thinks that her name and her status give her the right to treat others as beneath her. And Lorraine, in that moment, became a hero to so many people. She showed that you do not have to accept bad behavior just because it is coming from someone famous. She showed that standing up for yourself is not rude or unprofessional. It is necessary. It is right. The confrontation was not scripted. It was not planned. It was a real, raw moment of conflict between two very different people. On one side, you had Meghan, who walked in with an air of superiority and entitlement. On the other side, you had Lorraine, who built her career on being approachable, kind, and genuine. What made this altercation so shocking was not just the insults or the drama. It was the complete lack of self-awareness on Meghan's part. She genuinely seemed to believe that she was in the right, that she was the one being wronged. Even as she was being escorted out by security, she was still trying to assert her dominance. still trying to make everyone else feel small. But the audience saw through it. The crew saw through it. And most importantly, Lorraine saw through it. She recognized the behavior for what it was: bullying disguised as confidence, arrogance disguised as strength. And she was not going to let it slide. When the show came back from commercial, Lorraine addressed the situation with grace. She apologized to the viewers for what they had just witnessed. But she also made it clear that she had no regrets about her decision. She stood by her choice to remove Meghan from the stage. And in doing so, she sent a powerful message. Respect is not negotiable. Kindness is not optional. And no amount of fame or status gives you the right to treat people poorly. The rest of the show went on beautifully. The guests who came after were delightful. The conversations were engaging. The mood in the studio lifted. It was as if the dark cloud that Meghan had brought with her had finally dissipated. And Lorraine, ever the professional, moved forward without dwelling on the drama. She did what she always does. She focused on making her guests feel welcome, making her audience feel valued, and delivering a show that people could enjoy. But even as the show continued, everyone knew that what had just happened would be talked about for a long time. It was not every day that a guest gets kicked off a live television show. It was not every day that someone with Meghan's profile behaves so badly that security has to step in. And it was not every day that a host like Lorraine Kelly has to make the difficult decision to cut an interview short and ask someone to leave. This was a moment that would be replayed, discussed, and analyzed. And the more people looked at it, the more they would see that Lorraine had done exactly the right thing. She had protected her show, her team, and her audience from someone who had come in with nothing but negativity and disrespect. And she had done it with dignity. What this altercation really comes down to is a clash of values. Meghan walked onto that stage with the belief that her status made her special, that it made her better than everyone else. Lorraine, on the other hand, has always believed that everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and respect, regardless of who they are. And when those two worldviews collided, there was only ever going to be one outcome. Meghan underestimated Lorraine. She thought she could walk in, say whatever she wanted, and face no consequences. She thought that her name alone would protect her. But she was wrong. Because Lorraine Kelly is not someone who can be intimidated. She is not someone who will compromise her values for the sake of avoiding conflict. She is someone who will stand up for what is right, even when it is uncomfortable. And that is why, when people look back on this moment, they will remember Lorraine as the hero. They will remember her calm demeanor, her firm stance, and her refusal to be bullied. They will remember the way she handled an impossible situation with grace and strength. And they will remember that, in the end, kindness and respect won out over arrogance and entitlement. This was not just a talk show altercation. This was a lesson, a reminder that no matter who you are, no matter what title you hold, you do not have the right to treat people badly. You do not have the right to walk into someone else's space and demand special treatment. And if you do not be surprised when someone like Lorraine Kelly stands up and says, "Enough." Let us go back to another key moment in this confrontation. When Meghan complained about her dressing room and being kept waiting, she revealed something crucial about her mindset. She was not actually upset about the facilities or the timing. She was upset that she was not being treated as special. She expected red carpet treatment, VIP perks, everyone bowing to her every whim. And when she did not get that, she lashed out. Lorraine, in her response, showed everyone exactly what true professionalism looks like. She did not get defensive. She did not make excuses. She simply stated the facts. Meghan was late. The dressing room was standard. And those things were perfectly fine. Lorraine was not going to apologize for treating Meghan the same way she treats every other guest. Because in her world, equality is not just a talking point. It is a practice. The threats that Meghan made as she was leaving were particularly telling. She said she could ruin Lorraine with one social media post. She said she could destroy the show. But those threats were empty. Because at the end of the day, people see through that kind of behavior. They recognize when someone is trying to use their platform as a weapon, and they do not respect it. What people do respect is what Lorraine did, standing up for herself, setting boundaries, refusing to be treated poorly. Those are the actions of someone with real strength, real character, and real integrity. And that is why the audience applauded. Not because they enjoyed the conflict, but because they admired the way Lorraine handled it. Throughout the entire ordeal, Lorraine never raised her voice. She never resorted to personal attacks. She never tried to embarrass Meghan or make her look bad. She simply held her ground. She maintained her standards. And when it became clear that Meghan was not going to respect those standards, she made the difficult but necessary decision to end the interview. And then came the moment when Lorraine said those powerful words. "You need to leave right now." There was no hesitation in her voice. No doubt. She knew exactly what she was doing and why. And everyone in that studio, everyone watching at home, knew she was right. The walk-off that followed, with security escorting Meghan off the stage, was the culmination of everything that had come before. It was the natural consequence of her behavior. She had pushed and pushed, thinking she could get away with it. And when she finally faced consequences, she was shocked. She genuinely could not believe that someone would dare to stand up to her. The contrast between the two women could not have been more stark. Meghan, dressed in designer clothes, dripping with entitlement, thinking her title gave her a free pass to be rude. And Lorraine, professional and poised, defending her show and her values with quiet strength. One represented everything that is wrong with celebrity culture. The other represented everything that is right about human decency. When the show finally ended that day, the crew gathered around Lorraine. They hugged her. They thanked her. They told her how proud they were. Because she had not just stood up for herself. She had stood up for all of them. She had shown that their work matters, that their show has value, and that no one, no matter how famous, gets to diminish that. So yes, Meghan Markle was kicked off the Lorraine Kelly show. And yes, it was dramatic. But more importantly, it was justified. It was necessary. And it was a moment that reminded everyone watching that sometimes standing up for yourself is the most important thing you can do. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire. Someone else's studio, and had treated everyone with contempt. And they saw a host who had refused to accept that treatment. They saw entitlement meet its match, and they applauded. What made this moment so powerful was not just what happened on that stage, but what it represented. It was a stand against the culture of celebrity worship that has become so pervasive in our society. It was a reminder that fame does not excuse bad behavior, that status does not give you the right to belittle others, that no one is above basic human decency. Lorraine Kelly became a symbol of that principle. She showed that you can be kind and still be strong. You can be warm and still set boundaries. You can be gracious and still say, enough. And that is a lesson that resonates far beyond the walls of that television studio. Years from now, people will still remember this moment. They will remember the shock on Meghan's face when she was told to leave. They will remember the applause that followed her exit. They will remember Lorraine Kelly standing tall, her voice steady, her integrity intact. And they will remember that in a world where entitlement often goes unchecked, there are still people willing to stand up and say, this is not okay. This was not just a talk show altercation. It was a moment of truth, and it changed everything. In the end, Meghan Markle's threats proved empty. The show continued, the ratings soared, and Lorraine Kelly remained exactly where she had always been. In the hearts of her audience, beloved and respected. But for Meghan, the aftermath was different. The image of her being escorted off stage, angry, humiliated, defeated, would follow her for years. It became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. A reminder that no amount of titles or status could protect her from the consequences of her own actions. And perhaps, in time, she would learn something from it. Perhaps she would understand that respect is not given, it is earned. And that kindness, in the end, is the only title that truly matters. This is the story of a morning that started like any other. A bright studio, a warm host, an eager audience, and a guest who thought she was above it all. But what happened that day was not just about one interview gone wrong. It was about the collision of two worlds, one built on entitlement, the other built on decency. And it was about the courage it takes to stand up for what is right, even when it is hard, even when it is uncomfortable, even when the whole world is watching. Because sometimes, the most important thing you can do is say, enough.